For those that have logged in that are watching right now, this is just our post-stream technical sharing, I guess. So enjoy this few seconds of silence.
You can make a railway system. So then I opened the crate.
Okay, I think that shared. Yes, it did. Good. Excellent. What's up, YouTube? This is Daniel the Ultimate Blade here, back again, once again, with DestinyCast, along with my fellow YouTuber and Destiny fanatic, Lan the Ultimate Form. Say hello, Lan.
What's good, YouTube? Lan the Ultimate Form here, back again, once again. And today, people, we are here to talk about the Elixir. Oh, sorry, I said that, but I probably should have said we're here to talk about the Fallen.
Well, Fallen, also Elixir, basically the same species.
They are the same, but most Destiny players might not know that, still.
That is true. So, the Fallen were originally known as the Elixir, so that's something we will get into in a mo. But I hope everyone's having a wonderful day in this sweltering heat. This will be uploaded as a YouTube video afterwards for anyone that misses. If you hear me talking to random people, that's probably from the chat. So, if you're in the future, unfortunately, you can't quite see that bit. But bear with us on that. So, as you can see, I'm playing Destiny. We're doing some Nightfalls and some strikes today while we talk about the Fallen. Hopefully, we get some Fallen strikes. That would be greatly appropriate. But you never know. You never know what might roll for me on this one. But, as we said, we're here to talk about the Fallen. So the story of the Fallen started before the Destiny universe was sort of created, before we sort of stepped into as Guardians, as we are now. So the Traveller, as it does, we came to the Fallen, who were then known as the Elixir, that's their original species name, and came to them and gave them their own golden age. And rinse and sort of repeat of what's happened to us. It's just like the darkness has come and followed, but the one sort of change from that is that the Traveller abandoned them, even though we think he tried to abandon us as well, but that's a whole different piece of lore.
A whole other story.
So the Traveller had abandoned them, which sent them into their own dark age. And from that dark age came civil war, a lot of infighting about what to do and everything. Until fast forward a couple, I think it was like 100 years later or something like that, of this war that's gone on and basically torn their whole home world apart. They then decided to split off into houses to go and search for the Traveller. Now those houses have a lot of different names, and I will hand you over to Lan, who knows a lot about the Fallen houses and what they're called, because I'm hopeless with that.
Yes. So the Fallen take on a sort of tribal house system, to which each Elixir belongs to a house which is controlled by what they call a Kel. These are like chieftains who rule over the house, lead them in battle, and are the ones who distribute not just ranks, but also food, because the Elixir feed off ether, which allows them to grow in size and stuff. We'll talk about the Elixir's physical attributes a little bit later down the line, but the houses that we meet, especially in D1, because from the day your Guardian wakes up in the Cosmodrome, or near the Cosmodrome, the Elixir are the first thing we run into. Those houses happen to be the House of Devils, the House of Dusk, the House of Exiles, the House of Kings, the House of Rain, the House of Scar, the House of Winter, which I think popped up a little bit later, and the House of Wolves. We do have two more houses that do pop up later down the line, and a whole reformation of the Elixir, which happen to end up being the House of Light and the House of, I don't know what what's her name to a house?
Oh, I can't remember now.
Maybe they're the House of Dust, can't remember. I'll figure that out eventually. I have to double check. I did look at it and I did forget. But anyhow, moving on.
Yes,
Let's talk about the Elixni and their raid across the Sol system.
So the Fallen eventually came to the Sol system. So this was just after our collapse and everything. So just when we sort of got our light and everything. And they came obviously in search of the Traveller because they wanted that power back. They also knew the Traveller as the Great Machine, which we did actually forget to mention. So instead of calling it the Traveller like we did, they called it the Great Machine and they worshipped it like a god. And from that they came to Earth and decided to basically try and tear our whole civilization apart to try and get to the Traveller. From that came certain important battles that went on between the Fallen and the Guardians. So one of those battles we have is the Battle of Six Fronts, which I think is one of the most famous ones. So with the Battle of Six Fronts, it's just, I can't remember all of the details on it, but I believe that was the battle with our Great Wall.
Yes.
So the Fallen's goal there was to break through our wall and break through our defences to try and basically annihilate the entire human race and claim the Traveller for themselves. So this was a long, hard-fought battle. We had big players out there like Saladin was there, Shax, Saint Fontaine. So all of those sort of like great titans sort of defending our walls and making sure that they do not fall to the Fallen. And lucky enough, they didn't. Is there anything else about the Battle of Six Fronts or Four Fronts? I swear it's one of them. I can't remember.
Six Fronts. It's Six Fronts. You're right. It's Six Fronts. That was one of the most momentous battles in the city's history, city's early history. The Guardians had fought the Fallen up until that point in small skirmishes. It was one of the few battles where particular houses started gathering forces together. If I remember correctly, this Battle of Six Fronts saw the House of Wolves and the House of Devils, as well as another house. I believe it was three houses that joined together, massing their forces to attack the last safe city. If I remember correctly, that is.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. So it's like three houses are forming together to try and take down our Great Wall. And then after that, we moved swiftly on to the Battle of Twilight Gap, which is another famous sort of encounter with the Fallen.
And in this altercation, this was primarily the House of Kings that attacked the last safe city, and it did result in many of the House of Wolves coming to their aid. But that links into something that happens a little bit later on, where the Fallen are not besieged, but they were kind of called upon by Morozov, and leads to the fact that now when we go to the reef as Guardians, we see some Elixni under Mara's control.
But that is something we will get into a little bit later when we get into more stuff with the House of Wolves, because the House of Wolves play a very prominent part in the DLC, the House of Wolves DLC, the Destiny one. So that's something we will come back to later. So the Battle of Twilight Gap, obviously the House of Kings reinforcements did not arrive, which led to their defeat. Lots of different Guardians were there, so we had a famous Guardian, Anna Bray was there, and her power through her gunslinger was so powerful that the light essence from that is still seen there today, which is why she's also known as the most powerful gunslinger.
Yes. For those who do not know, gunslinger is a subclass, a solar subclass for the hunters.
It basically enables you to summon a golden gun and to be able to shoot it with weaponized light, which is a very interesting ways of doing things. I think shortly after the Battle of Twilight Gap, I think like a couple of years afterwards, is when our Guardian awakes. And that's where our...
Yeah, it wasn't too long after then.
Yeah, so that's where our battle with the Fallen sort of begins. So first of all, we wake up and the Fallen are already coming for us. That makes me wonder if they knew we were there, if they knew we were coming. Did they have some sort of intel? That we don't know the answer to. But just know they were there and they were the first opponents we went up against. Which is why I think they're probably one of the most famous Destiny enemies, really. I don't know if you agree with that one.
No, I very much agree with that. The Fallen are the best example of... were the best example of introducing different kind of enemy types that we would fight on a regular basis. You have the Dregs, who are the lowest rank of Elixni, and if you look at them carefully, most Elixni have 4 arms and 2 legs, and somewhat have this insectoid visage, but the Dregs are missing 2 of their arms, the lower arms, and this is because sometimes if a higher ranking Elixni does something wrong, they get demoted and have their arms cut off. And it's a way of controlling them and maintaining the hierarchy of power. You may also notice that Dregs are also quite small compared to other enemies like Archons and Kells. Kells are huge. Some of them even are ridiculously big. And this is because they can...
Yeah, and that brings us back to Aether. So their whole sort of growth and development is controlled by Aether. So when it comes to Dregs, for example, they're very much starved of Aether because they're seen as not worthy of having it. And then we go to the other side, which is the Kells, who are absolutely massive, as Lan said.
Yes.
It's just like who have an abundance of it. Aether has been used in very, very different ways throughout the storyline. An example of that is with the Forsaken DLC, where Aether was basically used to implant into Hive as well in one of the strikes. And let's just say Aether doesn't mix well with Hive. Creates very explosive possibilities.
Wait to say it, Dan.
So that's the whole sort of origin of the Elixni and how they sort of grow and everything. You got anything else to add on that, Lan?
Well, we did mention that the Elixni referred to the Traveler as the Great Machine. This developed into a cultural thing where now the Elixni not necessarily worship machines, but certain machines like their servitors play a role in their development individually as a house and as a species. This leads to lots of things like their interactions with Siva, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well as we go down the timeline. And it's one of those interesting things because in Destiny as a whole, machines or a sentient species relationship with machines is its own story to tell. For instance, our relationship with the Vex and how we as Guardians are using Vex technology in order to understand what they're capable of, how the universe works, because that's basically what Osiris has been doing all this time, and how they influence time. So that may be a topic for when we talk about the Vex.
Whole different kettle of fish. Something we won't get onto for a while. Because the amount of lore that is in the Vex and their links to darkness itself, very complicated. But I feel we need to get to other races and species first before we even think tackling the Vex. I think Vex will be one of the last ones we sort of tackle. But moving on from that and everything, so throughout the story, throughout the main campaign of Destiny, of the first game, we come across the Fallen primarily on Earth, and they're sort of like building up their forces there to try and do more assaults on us as our Guardians and everything, and on the city. We fought a lot of these plans throughout the story of the game. An example of that is Sevix Prime, which is one of their servitors, who they worship quite a lot and everything. So there's that and everything. And that's sort of like that's sort of all you see from the Fallen in terms of the base campaign of Destiny 1. The base campaign of Destiny 1 is focused on introducing every single species in the game and has a primary focus on the Vex themselves. So there isn't too much to actually dig into around that. But moving on to I think it was the second DLC. Yes, it was the second DLC. So the second DLC was the House of Wolves. Obviously, it's titled the House of Wolves, and so it's about the House of Wolves. So going back into the past, where the House of Kings were struggling against Asgard, had requested these reinforcements. Mara Soph, Queen of the Awoken People and of the Reef, had intercepted them to stop them from getting to us, and in turn she subjugated them and made them her own sort of, I wouldn't say slaves.
They became part of the Awoken society. Yeah.
So they became part of that society. Fast forward again, back to present day with the Guardians. Well, not present day, but past for us, but present day is in terms of this video. So from present day in terms of this video, the Kel for the House of Wolves, Skolas, has escaped. He's escaped the prison of Helders, which is something we'll come back to in a minute. Basically, it's a massive Awoken prison, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So us as Guardians have been tasked by the Reef and the Queen herself, Mara Soph, to hunt down Skolas and bring him back to the prison. So through that, we go to numerous different planets chasing down Skolas and his House of Wolves. Through that, he's trying to annihilate other houses' Kels to absorb them into himself to become what he calls the Kel of Kels.
And he would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky Guardians.
Exactly.
So Skolas was big. He was a big dude.
Massive. And our whole fight with him culminates on Venus, where Skolas is trying to take control of the Vex Gate network and to use it for himself. If he had succeeded with that, God knows what would have happened. It's just like, I think he would have annihilated everything in his way, because that's a lot of power to hold, and a lot of power to use, and the Vex Gate network and technology is unique in itself, and in the wrong hands could cause absolute destruction, like Osiris. But that's a story for another day.
And I know you don't like him.
It's not that I don't like him, it's just that he's the cause of lots of issues. But
that is very true.
That's something for another day. Also, a little bonus piece of lore for you guys, and this is going back into the past a little bit, so we're time travelling a lot here, but I feel the structure of the episode actually quite fits it. So, going back into the past for a little bit for a bonus piece of lore, is that Saint 14, who was a Guardian, who was a Titan, served directly under the Speaker. The Speaker is who talks to the Traveller. I think we covered that briefly in the last episode.
Yeah, I did. Flashback.
Flashback to that. If you want to catch up on that, tune into the last episode.
He was talking trash to Gaul.
Everyone likes talking trash to Gaul. But going through that and everything, Saint 14 was tasked with killing one of the Kels. Can't remember which one it was.
I actually can't remember who it was.
I think it might have actually been House of Kings. I think it might have.
That sounds about right. The Kill the House of Kings. That sounds about right.
So he was tasked with killing the Kel, the House of Kings, and he headbutted him to death. In pure Titan fashion. So that's a little bit of bonus lore that we did forget to mention. So,
he bashed his entire skull in.
Yeah, so in great Saint 14 fashion. And if you're lucky, if I do finishers in this stream, you will see the headbutt he did, because it's a finisher, which is just incredibly appropriate. So keep your eyes out on my gameplay for that. Fast forwarding back. So we've captured Skolos. He's been sent back to the prison of elders, and we have been tasked by the Queen and Verax. Verax is a whole different kettle of fish we'll get into later.
Yes.
We have been tasked to basically punish him, and they keep bringing him back to life. It's just like a sort of like an internal punishment for what he did to try and overthrow the Queen. So we go into the prison of elders, we compete for a chance to take down Skolos. And we do. And we continue to grind him for a very long time. As his punishment. So
his punishment is very reminiscent of, I believe, Prometheus.
Yes.
How he has to, I believe it's Prometheus who lays on the rock and has his liver eaten by crows, and then it grows back and he has to deal with that. So it's either that one or the one where you have to roll the hill up, roll the rock up the hill just for it to fall back down, just to do it again.
Yeah.
I always get Prometheus' punishment mixed up with now it's gone out my head. Dang it.
I'm sure it will come back later.
Yeah, when we finish talking about it.
Yeah, most likely. But moving on from that, the next couple of DLCs, we don't really actually see that much of the Fallen. They take quite a bit of a backseat, especially when the Taken appear. Going on to the Taken themselves, the Taken actually had quite a big effect on the Fallen themselves. It's just like, especially with the Taken War, which lasted a year in game. So with the Taken War and the arrival of Oryx the Taken King, who's basically like King of the Hive, basically, for those that don't know, I'll put it in those simple terms. From that, they had a great effect on the Fallen as the Taken encroached on a lot of their territory, and a lot of their forces were taken by Oryx to use as his own.
Yes,
so
there's quite a few houses were decimated as a result.
So from that,
including the House of Winter.
Yes. We were completely decimated by the Taken and Oryx himself. So from that, we move past the Taken War into a little thing we like to call Siva.
It's hardly little, that. Yeah. It's hardly little.
Maybe I'm underestimating it a little bit there. But, Lan, do you want to explain what Siva is? Because I can never quite understand it still.
Okay, so, back in the Golden Age, humanity, the Break Corporation decided to make a set of nanomachines that were able to replicate as well as fabricate materials for use in other pieces of Golden Age tech and population efforts post the terraformation of many of the planets due to the Traveler. This was later used by Rasputin to do some rather hideous things, but it was also the way that Rasputin was able to fabricate most of his war sats and weapons and other tools that he used since the Dark Age leading up to the Golden Age. When Rasputin was done, he closed it off in a bunker that was in Old Russia? The Old Russia? Yeah, Old Russia, called the Plague Lands?
Yeah, it was Old Russia. Yeah, the Plague Lands in Old Russia.
Yeah, the Plague Lands. The only reason it got called the Plague Lands was because some special people that we're not gonna deal with decided that they wanted to use Siva as a weapon against the Fallen. I think it was the Fallen they planned to use it against.
I believe they were also trying to turn it against Rasputin as well.
Good luck with that one.
Because Rasputin was quite a big threat to those during the Dark Age, especially the warlords, which we'll get into in another video.
Yes. Because the Fallen are hell-bent on not just worshipping technology, but using it to its fullest, they decided to try and claim Siva for themselves, and that's like a whole chunk of DLC that Dan can lead us into.
Exactly. So, from that we have the Seaver Crisis, which was also known in DLC terms as the Rise of Iron. Now, the Rise of Iron DLC is very controversial when it comes to the Destiny community. A lot of people hated it, a lot of people liked it, and the reasoning for that is because it was very much an in-between DLC leading up to Destiny 2, so a lot of people feel they didn't actually put as much effort as they can into it. From that, I kind of agree. It was very, like, content lacking and everything, and especially because the whole DLC is apparently not canon now, which is a bit weird, but I think that's just Destiny storytelling just trying to come into its own. So, from that, we have these things called the Devil Slicers. The Devil Slicers are like a segment of Fallen who use Seaver to sort of like remake things that they wish. So remember back in the video I mentioned Sevix Prime. They revived Sevix Prime and imbue him with Seaver. And that
making him making Sevix Prime Digivolve too.
Oh god. I can't actually remember.
Perfected.
Yeah, Sevix Perfected. It's just like ridiculous naming, but it will do. It's just like we have a new enemy force to fight. Well, a new enemy segmented or Fallen to fight. And from that, we, alongside Lord Saladin, journey into where Seaver is held to try and reclaim it. Well, not reclaim it, more like shut it down and blow the place to Kingdom Come.
Because they didn't succeed to blow it up the first time.
And technically, they don't succeed to blow it up the second time, because there's still segments of Seaver throughout the Sol system.
Yes.
But I know there's a lot of things going around that Failsafe has access to it as well. I know that's going around the community a lot, especially when it comes to Failsafe. But we'll learn about her more in Destiny 2 in the next part of this video, actually, because we're splitting it into two halves: Destiny 1, then Destiny 2, because there's so much to go over, and I don't fancy this being a 3-hour-long video. And I'm sure you guys don't want to listen to us for 3 hours. Well, I can listen to that for 3 hours. It's just
I don't think you want that. I'm too tired for that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But anyway, from that we break into where Seaver is contained, and we find out that Seaver itself has basically, because when Iron Lords went to go shut Seaver down and failed to do so, it took a lot of the Iron Lords with it. And let's just say there was a lot. It's very much like necromancy, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where basically Seaver has reanimated those corpses, and that's very scary. That Seaver can learn to reanimate matter itself. It's just like organic life forms. I could understand if it was exos. That would make sense.
It did that too.
Yeah, it did that too. But for it to be able to do actual humans and everything, and actual organic matter, I feel is quite scary. Which is why I'm glad we shut it down. Well, kind of.
Tried to.
Yeah. But from that, that's the whole story of the Fallen up to sort of Destiny 2. From here, we'll sort of go into theory sort of country and explaining quite a few of the main characters that we haven't quite mentioned that play a big part in sort of like Fallen hierarchy.
Yes.
So our first one of them, and a personal favourite of mine, and a personal favourite of Lance, is Verax.
I wouldn't say he's a personal favourite, because Mithrax is slowly getting up there.
Oh yeah, Mithrax is definitely getting up there, but I think that's more Destiny 2 country, isn't it?
We'll talk about Mithrax in the next episode. But Varick, oh boy, oh doggy. Which house was he originally part of? Was he part of the House of Wolves?
Yeah, he was part of House of Wolves,
Yeah,
because he works for the Queen and everything. So So Verax was originally part of House of Wolves. He was actually quite a high-ranking member of House of Wolves. And he basically serves as the Queen's sort of advisor on the sort of Fallen and everything, and the House of Wolves themselves. And I think he's one of the only Fallen who didn't actually betray the Queen when it first came to the House of Wolves sort of raising up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was the only one, really. I think she had a couple of guards, but I don't really count them. So not really... They don't really take any place in the lore at all, do they?
No, not really.
So I kind of leave them out. We also have the Queen of the Awoken.
He was also a surviving member of the House of Judgment. I just remembered that.
Okay, that's what it is. So he's originally from the House of Judgment. Okay, so that makes sense now. So Varick serves as that sort of advisor and the warden of the Prison of Elders. So his lovely voice is what's commentating over the whole of the Prison of Elders. And I love some of those voice lines. It's just like... I think my best impression of Verax is this. Mines, yes. Dismantle or die. It's just one of the perfect lines and everything, and they bring that line back in Forsaken, which is just. When I first heard that, it was just sort of thinking, it was just like, that's amazing. I love it, and everything. But Verax, after the sort of, I'm not going to say what I'm actually next going to say because it's actually a spoiler for another video, so I'm actually not going to say it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So. Verax leaves the Queen's side for certain reasons that I don't want to mention here because it ruins a whole other video. And basically goes AWOL. Goes completely AWOL from the system. And then forms his own house, I believe.
The House of Judgment.
Yeah, the House of Judgment. But that's something for Destiny 2 later. But just know that Varick himself is a very important character, and I think he will play a very vital role, possibly in Beyond Light.
Yes.
Especially with the enemies we're going to be coming up against in Beyond Light. And for those that are watching live right now of my gameplay, we are getting absolutely smashed on this Nightfall. We are not doing well. But... you're just going to have to bear with it. That's probably the YouTuber's curse working on me there.
I mean, it happens to us during Monster Hunter too, so...
Yeah, that's true. For those that want to view our Monster Hunter videos, go into the playlist below. All my videos are segmented into playlists now for your ease. So you can find them anywhere. They all come under Monster Hunter. And our main series with that is Hunting Sundays. So, a little bit of a plug-in there. So feel free to tune into that.
Plug.
Got to these days. It's just like, gotta get past that YouTube algorithm. And I've just been booped off a wall. Just been booped off a wall at the moment, so that's a little bit of a fail for you guys exclusively.
Wow.
Yeah, booped really far. So that was fun.
So what other little tidbits do we have to round off?
Well, we can talk about the Queen of the Awoken and the Prince. And since they do actually have quite an important role in sort of like Fallen hierarchy. So, the Queen of the Awoken, I'll give you a brief summary of who she is, because it actually fits in quite well here, because we were introduced to her mainly in the House of Wolves, so it makes sense to actually introduce her now to you guys. So the Queen of the Awoken, also known as Mara Soph, is the Queen of the Awoken, and she controls the Reef, and she controls the House of Wolves, and loads of other Fallen as well. And from that we also have her brother, who plays a vital part in that DLC and DLCs to come afterwards in Destiny 2. But we'll save that for another video. Prince Aldrin. Now, Prince Aldrin is a whole different kettle of fish. When he gets separated from the Queen, because I don't want to say what happens, he sort of subjugates his own house by himself. Now I can't remember which house that is.
Do you want to say?
Let's leave it for another time.
Okay, no problem. Because they're a complicated story that when we discuss it in the next episode, you'll see why that particular group of Elixni are something else entirely in their own right.
Yeah, exactly. But that's something for another video, as we said. Man, is there anything else important about Fallen that I may have missed?
Not really. We could discuss their weapons, or all the Fallen weapons and armor that we do get.
That's a good idea. So, get quite a few Fallen themed weapons actually. So the first one of those weapons, and it's actually a personal favourite of mine, is the Kreen Breaker's Bow. I believe that's a Fallen weapon. It is, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
Don't ask me because I don't know.
Yeah, well, you get it during the House of Wolves, and you get it part of the Prison of Eldar, so yes, it is. It's a Fallen themed weapon. That weapon is basically, it's a culmination of different weapons. So it's a fusion rifle mixed with a sniper, and basically functions as a Fallen sniper. So we have that weapon, and the Fallen Vandals use that quite a lot. And we also have the, what's it called? I forget what it's called. The Lord of Wolves. We have the Lord of Wolves Exotic, which is a fully automatic shotgun, which I believe captains use. So it's sort of like modified from a captain's weapon. Now, captains are a step above dregs and vandals. Dregs, going back to that sort of cannon fodder. Vandals are sort of like glorified cannon fodder. I don't know if you agree with that.
With bigger gun, or with guns, period.
Yeah, and the captains sort of command those, and so then the next one's up. And then you have the Archon priests as well. Now the Archon priests basically control ether. They control the ether and they use it quite a lot.
And they're the ones in direct communication with the servitors.
So they're like sort of like the go-betweens between them and the Kells. Which brings us on to the Kells, who are the leader of the Fallen Houses. Now, at the moment in Destiny 2, we don't really have any Kells really, because they're all dead.
Either we've killed them, or the houses. Well, that's a big thing about the Fallen in Destiny 2, because so many terrible things have happened post the Taken War.
Yeah.
Many of the houses have either been absolutely decimated, like the House of Rain, which is absolutely gone,
And the House of Devils.
and the House of Devils, and we'll touch on this a bit more in the next episode, but there's lots of reformation between the houses that are left, and many Kells are vying for power. And whenever you kill a Kell, there's generally a power vacuum to which many of the Elixni underneath them become houseless. And that does cause a lot of problems for the Elixni socially and in their physical and mental development. So that's something we'll talk about later, because it becomes a plot point when discussing the newer houses and the new key players, like Mithras, who pop up and start changing how things go for the Elixir.
Exactly. So that's something we'll get onto in the next episode, because that's just a whole different kettle of fish, and it doesn't really apply here right now.
Yes.
But there's a lot of exciting things coming up with the Fallen. It's just like they're a very interesting race and everything. Especially of how they aren't actually too dissimilar to ourselves. Especially with how the darkness has affected them. And I think, apart from the Cabal, who are people we'll get into another time, they aren't actually directly linked to the darkness.
As of yet.
As of yet. It's
one of those things where if you take their prior involvement with the Traveller, it would somewhat make sense they wouldn't want to be involved with the Darkness. Because the Darkness was in part the thing that destroyed their society and their solar system.
Exactly. So, from that, we don't really have too much more to talk about when it comes to D1, because with Destiny 1, a lot of it is left up to interpretation.
Or was shoved in the Grimoire when no one looked.
Exactly. So we have all those kells and everything. A lot of it's been decimated by the time D1 sort of ends, especially with the Seaver Crisis and everything. So that's a big sort of involvement of everything of why the Fallen was sort of decimated and everything was because of the Seaver Crisis and the Taken War and everything. So I think that's about it for the Fallen. If there's anything you'd like to add, Lan?
No, not particularly. I think we've covered pretty much all the stuff in D1. As Dan mentioned before, the Fallen weren't really a focus in D1 as a whole. The Hive and the Vex kind of take the forefront in the majority of the storytelling during that point. So we'll have probably a bit more to talk about when we get to them, but we thought we'd start with the Fallen first because they are probably the most prominent thing that we're moving towards at the moment in D2, but their involvement with D1 kind of does set a very strong foundation, especially when we start talking about key players who we've interacted with and met with on numerous occasions up until now.
Especially with the fact, another reason we picked them first as well is because they are sort of the first race you actually encounter in the game, and from now on, now that we're doing these videos to sort of round up all the races and the history around them, because it ties into the story quite well, is that we'll tackle them in order of encounter. So we've got one more video on the Fallen which will summarise all of their involvement in sort of like D2 and everything, and we'll probably do that for all of the races, actually splitting those videos into two parts, because I don't want you guys sitting there for 2 hours and getting completely lost. It's hard to absorb this information. I know myself and Lan found it hard to absorb this information when it was originally given to us.
The chosen one and her ghost, still trying to save the universe.
From that, our next video after the next one, Savala's big head. Yes, Savala does have a big head. Agreed. He has a massive head, but we love it.
I don't. But after we discuss the Fallen, we will be moving to.
We'll be moving to the Hive. Because the next race we encounter is actually the Hive. And then after that, because I might as well mention them in order now. The next one we encounter is the Vex, and then the Cabal, which will just be one episode. The Cabal will just be one episode because their involvement in D1 is minimal at best. Actually, I think they turn up in the story properly once, and that's only in the base game story.
Yeah.
So they will be one episode just because of that. And then after that is the Taken. That's probably going to be like that could possibly actually go into 3 episodes.
I don't think so, Dan. I think if you plan it right, it will be good.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 episodes will be hopefully what we'll stick to with that. And then the last race we encounter is the Scorn. Who are a segment of the Fallen, and they'll actually be covered in the next video because I count them as a segment of Fallen.
Yeah.
And they sort of link in together. From that, I hope everyone's enjoyed the video of our second episode of DestinyCast and everything. I think we're slowly getting there with how we want to structure things, and it's the first time we've kind of done this kind of thing. Like this podcast sort of format on on a particular type of game story-wise. As you may have seen us on Gaming Time before, and everything. Link in the description, by the way, for Gaming Time. Whoop whoop. Bit selfless promotion there for that channel. So we've done this sort of podcast before, but never focusing on a game story before, so it's kind of new to us both. Is that right to say, Lan?
Yes.
So from that, we will end the video here. So any final words, Lan?
No, we're good. Let's close out.
Excellent. So this has been Daniel the Ultimate Blade here with DestinyCast. Like, comment, and subscribe for more, and share as well. Check out the links in the description for Lan's channel. He's currently doing a playthrough of Horizon Zero Dawn. How is it going on there? Is it going good?
Good so far. Episode 10 should be coming out in the next like half an hour. If anyone's interested, I'll be streaming it on YouTube, so feel free to pass by, say hi, and as Dan said, please make sure you like, subscribe, share with your family and your friends, and ring that bell to get notified of more content coming your way.
Excellent. Until next time, enjoy the nice weather. Try not to get too warm. Make sure you hydrate and drink plenty of water. I'm sounding like a public service announcement now. Absolutely sound.
You all got to look after each other. You all got to look after each other, Dan.
Exactly. But until then, we will see you guys next time, and I will leave you with these parting words. See you Starside, Guardians.